Although we are still in the midst of free agency, and yes, there are some free agents still available at the time of this recording, but it's pretty few and far between with what the Bulls would actually be able to afford anyway and offer with the cap space that they have available to them, especially after recently signing Goran Dragic to that one-year deal, which now puts them at 15 roster spots. So as much as I'd like to think that the Bulls still have one potential signing left in them, if another player was to be waived, Tony Bradley, knowing that the Reinsdorfs are refusing to go over the luxury tax line, I'd say it's more than likely that the Bulls are done signing any free agents. I could be wrong, and I hope I am, because the Bulls still need to address some holes in their roster, but because free agency signings are likely off the board at this point, the Bulls are going to need to execute a trade of some kind to address rim protection and shooting, because signing Andre Drummond, Goran Dragic, and re-signing Derrick Jones Jr. does not solve for that. So in today's video, we're going to be discussing two trades that we need to see the Bulls make to round out this roster. So what's going on, everyone? You're listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Now, if you're new to the channel, or if you've been a long-time viewer but haven't subscribed to the channel, consider subscribing. That way you don't miss a video, as I'll be covering the Bulls all off-season and season long. About 53% of you are not subscribed to the channel, so it would mean a great deal to me, as it is a great way to support the channel. I've set a goal for myself to get to 30,000 subscribers by the start of the season, so make it happen. I'm also going to be doing a big giveaway when I hit that mark. But anyway, let's get back to the topic. Now, there are so many trade scenarios that could be done to solve some of the Bulls' deficiencies. So many different packages, 3-team trades, so I get it. But for now, I'm just going to be focusing on two trades and two trades only. And let's start with the first trade, and that's the Bulls trading for Seth Curry. Now, I mentioned this in one of my videos where I discussed 5 trades that I want to see the Bulls make. I think Seth Curry would be a great addition coming off the bench to address the Bulls' need for shooting. Curry, who has always been overshadowed by his brother, is quietly getting better and better with every passing season, improving his offensive game. Last season, Curry averaged 15 points per game on 48% shooting from the field and 42% from 3. He's a decent enough of a playmaker that you can play with at the 1 or the 2. What I also like about Curry is that he's a little more versatile with his scoring. He's not just a 3-point shooter, but can also score on the dribble drive or shoot from mid-range at a solid clip. Unlike a guy like Duncan Robinson, who is someone I've talked about in the past as an option the Bulls should consider trading for as a sharpshooter. But the more I think about Robinson, the more I would prefer a shooter like Curry, because although Robinson is a sharpshooting specialist, which the Bulls need, he's so one-dimensional with his scoring and, of course, is terrible on defense, and I would much prefer to take on Curry's contract on an expiring deal of just $8.5 million, while Robinson is still owed nearly $75 million over the course of the next 4 seasons, which also means you're going to have to trade more for him to match salaries, which leads me into what a trade package would look like for Seth Curry. Honestly, you might even be able to get away with a straight trade of Coby White for Seth Curry. I know that sounds crazy, but let me explain. First of all, money-wise, it works. You don't have to add any more assets because Coby is making a little less than $1 million from what Curry is making. And yes, I know Coby's trade value is low, and it's likely not going to be enough, which I'll address in case a straight trade isn't enough. But here's my rationale for why just Coby could work. Because look, if in fact the Nets trade Kevin Durant, which I don't know why I say if, they're going to, because Kevin Durant has already requested a trade, it also means they're likely going to be moving on from Kyrie Irving. The Nets are likely going to be going through a rebuild. The assets that they're going to be getting in return for Kevin Durant and Kyrie are probably going to be in the form of young players and draft capital, or expiring contracts of older players to free up cap space for next offseason. Now, I know the Nets are looking for an all-star or all-stars in return for Kevin Durant, but I really don't think they're going to be able to get that. I think they can get great up-and-coming young players, but already established all-stars in return is unlikely when they have little leverage in the situation. You're probably looking at acquiring a lot of draft picks like the Jazz did with Rudy Gobert. Now, the Bulls don't have a ton of draft capital or young assets to work with, but we're talking about trading for Seth Curry here. This isn't Kevin Durant. And because Seth Curry is 31, he's on an expiring deal, if the Nets are blowing it up, getting a young 22-year-old shooting guard who still shows some upside potential. He's an inconsistent player, but still a guy who can give you some scoring off of the bench and might be an asset for the future in the right system. He's also on an expiring contract, so if it doesn't work out, no harm. But for the Bulls, they need someone who can be relied upon more consistently as that scoring spark off of the bench. Jordan Clarkson was another guy I would be interested in entertaining for a trade, but he's likely going to cost more in terms of what you would have to give up than someone like Seth Curry. Now, if Coby White alone isn't enough for the Nets to bite on a trade for Seth, you could include a second-round pick. But anything more than that is just too much in my view. Like, you shouldn't have to include the Portland first round pick with Coby White. That package should be able to get you much more than someone like Seth Curry. Now, even with this trade, given the signing of Dragic, the Bulls are still very heavy in the backcourt because you're exchanging one combo guard for another. But I do think it's always good to have a little bit of insurance in the backcourt given Lonzo's injury history. Not only that, but Alex Caruso also missed considerable time last season. But yes, you do have to wonder how many minutes some of these guys are going to get, or if they'll even be in the rotation when everyone is actually healthy. Now, the other trade I would love to see the Bulls go after, and this really addresses their rim protection, but also sets them up for success for the future, and that's making a trade with the Spurs for Jakob Poeltl. Now, I know what you're thinking. How would this work? Poeltl is a starting center. The Bulls already have Vucevic. They just signed Andre Drummond as a backup 5. You can't have 3 centers on your team. Well, hear me out. This isn't going to be a short-term play. Poeltl is only 26. Has continued to get better with every passing season since being in the league. Vucevic is on an expiring deal, and it's still unclear whether the Bulls will actually extend him beyond that. And I think unless Vucevic has an insane bounce-back season where he looks like the all-star we traded for, I have a hard time seeing him staying beyond his contract when he's 33 years old. That would leave Poeltl the opportunity to be the Bulls' starting center for the future. And you're probably thinking, you want Jakob Poeltl to be the Bulls' starting center for the future? Well, the fact of the matter is you don't need an elite-level center in today's NBA when you already have elite-level scorers in guys like Zach Lavine and DeMar DeRozan. And it's not like Poeltl is a scrub. He's arguably one of the more underrated big men in the league with his rim protection and shot blocking, along with his rebounding and also his improved offensive game now. Poeltl has grown to become a very effective post-up player, as well as second chance point putbacks on offensive rebounds. He's not a shooter, doesn't take threes, so he doesn't really help space the floor, but he makes up for it with his strong defense. Look, the Bulls need a rim protector. They need someone who can guard the pick and roll. It was their biggest weakness on defense last season. And I'm not saying Poeltl is an elite level rim protector, but he's certainly better than Vucevic. And at Poeltl's age, the fact that he continues to get better on both ends of the floor, that leaves the Bulls with some upside potential while Vucevic rides off into the sunset into retirement. Now the question is, why would the Spurs even want to trade Poeltl as he's been a pretty valuable asset to them? Well, the Spurs' recent move of trading their best player in DeJounte Murray for 3 first-round picks, it's pretty clear this team is looking to tank and do a full-on rebuild. And Jakob Poeltl, being 26 in his prime, conflicts with that direction of the franchise. And because he's one of the more valuable assets that could get you younger assets or draft capital in return, why not do it, especially if you're not looking to compete now? So the trade I would like to see that I think is fair value and enough to entice the Spurs is trading Dalen Terry, the Bulls' first-round pick from this past draft, the first-round pick that the Bulls are owed from Portland, and Tony Bradley for Jakob Poeltl. Tony Bradley is really just in there as salary filler, but I guess technically he's still a younger asset. I know a lot of Bulls fans are not going to like me including Dalen Terry in there, as I know the front office has been really high on this kid, and of course, there is a lot of upside potential. But after the Bulls re-signed Derrick Jones Jr., the fact that we already have a ton of guards, and the fact that the Bulls are really looking for players who can contribute and help win now, you have to start going big and making aggressive moves to round out the roster. We don't know what Dalen Terry is going to develop into as a player in the NBA. We haven't seen him play a single game in the NBA. And this is actually coming from someone who liked the pick of Dalen Terry at 18. I actually love the versatility and the energy he brings, and just being a fierce competitor. I want guys like that on my team. But it's so hard to tell at this point if he is in fact going to pan out. And I also think it's unlikely that he can contribute and be impactful in a meaningful way in at least the next 2 years, while Poeltl would be able to provide an immediate impact right away with his needed rim protection, size, and scoring. And you also have to include the first-round pick from Portland, because I don't think Dalen Terry is going to be enough to get it done for the Spurs, especially considering the first-round pick from Portland is lottery protected. Like I said, the Spurs are going to be looking to get younger and stash draft picks to rebuild this team. A young player and a first-round pick, that's more than enough, in my opinion anyway, of a valuable return for Jakob Poeltl. Now, I'm going to throw in a bonus trade in there, even though I know I said I was just going to be doing 2 trades, but this would be one trade that kills 2 birds with 1 stone, and that would be the Bulls trading for both Jakob Poeltl and Doug McDermott from the Spurs. Doug McDermott has kind of been low-key good the last few seasons. I know there will be some Bulls fans that will want nothing to do with McDermott because he ended up becoming a bust of a lottery pick that we traded up in the draft for, trading the 16th and 19th pick to get to 11 to draft McDermott. But we should be blaming Garpax more for that than McDermott himself. McDermott would actually provide the outside shooting the Bulls need. I do still prefer Seth Curry because I think he's a little more versatile of a scorer, and he's on a friendlier contract than someone like Doug McDermott. But like Poeltl, McDermott doesn't really fit the Spurs timeline with their rebuild, given Dougie is 30 years old, but he could be that sharpshooting specialist the Bulls are looking to help spread the floor and draw double teams away from DeRozan and Lavine, as that was something teams really took advantage of last season. Knowing the Bulls didn't have any reliable shooters and knew that they could double up DeMar and Zach easily. I do think Lonzo will solve that once he's back and healthy because he's actually an outside shooting threat. But aside from Lonzo, you're going to need a player like McDermott who shoots threes at a 42% clip, shoots 46% from the field. He's actually got a solid mid-range game as well and has improved his cutting to the basket on backdoor passes. Obviously, McDermott can't really do much of anything else, not a great rebounder, but again, this is just to address the Bulls' lack of shooting, and Doug is also able to play the 3 or 4, so it gives the Bulls some flexibility with this play off of the bench. A trade package like this would include Coby White, since in this scenario we wouldn't be trading for Seth Curry, Coby White, Dalen Terry, that Portland first-round pick, and of course Tony Bradley for salary filler, in exchange for Doug McDermott and Jakob Poeltl. All said, I still prefer the Seth Curry route, especially if all you would have to give up is just Coby in the trade, but either way, both of these trade scenarios would greatly improve the Bulls' shooting and rim protection while also being practical trades where they don't have to give up their whole core. But I would actually love to hear some trade scenarios you guys have as far as ways to improve the Bulls' shooting and rim protection. Let me know in the comments, and as always, be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan, as I do post daily Bulls content. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one.